Ravens Nation, good evening. It is 5:04 Eastern here on Sunday, September 15th, and we just watched as crushing and as disappointing of a loss as you probably have seen in the John Harbaugh era. Welcome inside the vault. This is our post-game live stream. Ravens fall to the Raiders, Sarah, 26-23. Our predictions are shot. Everybody's predictions are shot. Vegas is stunned, and Ronnie Stanley was just quoted for saying the following, quote, "These are the types of games we cannot lose." He called it self-inflicting. He called it unacceptable. And that's where we stand right now. Tonight's live stream is brought to you by our friends at GEHA, Government Employees Health Association. I'm Bobby Trosset, as always, joined alongside Sarah Ellison, my co-host. We're here to break it all down for you because, Sarah, as much as we're going to try to make sense of it, and there are plenty of areas to blame, and we'll spread it around, it does kind of feel inexcusable and inexplicable in a sense.
You can definitely spread it around, but at the top of the list, I'm putting coaching.
Me too.
100%. I'm putting the top of it at coaching. Just when you have a 10-point lead, Bobby, going into the fourth quarter, you got a 10-point lead, and then you are up against an offense that is brand new. This is the second week under their brand new offensive coordinator with Gardner Minshew, who for the second time is coming in to upset the Ravens. And from bad challenge flags to stubbornness at the offensive line, to some okay, but some really bad flags, just clunky and just fell apart. The Ravens just fell apart. When you have a 10-point lead and you have Derrick Henry in a backfield with Lamar Jackson and Justice Hill, that should be good night. That should be a cakewalk to the end. To melt down the way the Ravens did is, figure it out. You have to figure it out against a team like the Raiders. We definitely expected a comfortable win, a get-right game after a tough loss against the two-time defending champs, and it seemed like that's the way it could be going, and they just fell apart.
They did. You see your post-game comments on Twitter that are up on the screen right now. Here are mine. Like I said off the top, I mean, that's as poor of a regular season loss as you will ever see in the Harbaugh era. Like you said, the mind-boggling decisions to throw challenge flags with no regard for timeouts. John Harbaugh did get up at the press conference here a short while ago and had a couple things to say about it. You know, he felt like it was a high leverage opportunity with the Davante Adams challenge. And then aside from that, which again, we have the luxury of sitting in our couches, in our living rooms, in our man caves and woman caves and things of that nature and having the replay and whatnot. But he should also have a communication system up in the booth, up high atop the stadium where everything is streamlined. And so I guess the high leverage example with Davante is one thing. The Zay Flowers incompletion, Sarah, to me, that is as mind-boggling as it gets. He did say that he was just trying to give his guys a rest or something to that effect. Do you remember what it specifically was? Do we have a slide on that of what Harbs had to say? I think we do, actually. Let me pull it up for you. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. Let's go like this. Give me 1 second on the fly here. Harbs, you transcribed it. He said he does call upstairs to see what they saw before challenging, but it was going fast as the Raiders rushed to the line of scrimmage. Quote, "It's not like you have all day and you don't have much of a look. Just the high leverage of it, I just felt like," and this is the Davante Adams, "and it was on me. I just felt like I'm going to take a shot here and see if we'll win this one because it was a big chunk play. You're not going to be undefeated on challenges over the course of the season. I don't think that's the difference in the game. Would have been nice to have a timeout, but you have to take a shot sometimes too. Would have been nice to have multiple timeouts at points in the game. It would have been nice to have one at the end of the first half. Would have been nice to have one at the end of the second half." So those were that's one area, Sarah, where is it the difference in the game? Okay, it's not the difference in the game. It certainly led to the ultimate outcome of the game.
We don't know. I didn't like this answer. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it for multiple reasons. One, he's admitting to guessing because he didn't have enough time. The first one that he took a flag on, you heard the crowd screaming. And I kind of wondered if he got baited in by the crowd because the crowd thought that the refs got it wrong.
Yep.
On our TV copy, we saw it immediately. There was no way he was going to win that. The second one, I mean, he's saying like, I took a shot because it was a high leverage play. I don't know that that's the way to go about it. Especially when you're expected to have the like in the beginning of in the beginning when he did a challenge flag, I guess you're not fully in control or whatnot, but like you like it to me, like if you're gonna guess, that's like a desperation move, right?
Yep.
So if you're playing with somebody and you're way behind, you have nothing to lose, then sure, guess on it. But the game is tight, and at least in the beginning, but then you had control for most of the game. Like
Particularly in the third quarter and the way they came out of the half.
the way they came out of the half was exactly what we've been wanting to see for 2 games, yeah,
Yep.
for a
Yep.
game and a half, and then it was like, "Okay, here it is." They found their footing. They
Yep.
found Henry, they found how to do this, and then it just got sloppy after that, so I don't like that he's guessing, and I would be okay with a guess, again, in certain situations if you're down and you have nothing to lose, but in a tight game like that, you can't risk it, and then I didn't like the answer, like, any single player, if they ever said, "Well, what I did, sure, it didn't work, but it wasn't the difference in the game." What? No, 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 no. We always point to ourselves. That's what you do on a team. You point to ourselves. And he's like, "It would have been nice to have a timeout, but you have to take a shot sometimes." Sure, sometimes, maybe not twice in a single game.
And a calculated shot.
Yeah, it needs to be more calculated. So I didn't like that answer. I didn't
Yeah.
like for both of those reasons. So and to be honest with you, that's not the only reason to be pushing back on John Harbaugh and the coaching staff. I think the big one is the offensive line woes. So, and by the way, should we just put this in perspective? What an 0-2 loss means, and then we can continue to explain why we're still pushing back against Harbaugh. But to be 0-2, this is the first time since 2015. Bobby, that's almost a decade to start off with this. And in 2015, they finished 5-11.
Right.
Also, this is the third biggest upset loss for the Ravens in history because they were 8.5 favorites to win. It's just it's not Ravens football. It's inexcusable. So here's the biggest reason why I'm frustrated with coaching, and this stems back to into the preseason. You know what? I can't keep bashing Daniel Fa'alele on his own because he's being asked to do something that is a mountain of a change. To me, he does not look ready to be a right guard. He's been a tackle his entire life. You got Max Crosby coming in, and look, anybody's going to have their hands full with him. And Max Crosby made a lot of people look dumb. He got past Likely once, he killed McCary once, he got Falele in the most crucial part of the game. Like, he was back there all the time. He's a superstar for a reason. And so it's hard to say, "Hey, Daniel Falele, in fourth quarter, when we need a drive and we got to get down because they just hit a go-ahead touchdown and we have about 2 minutes left, and you're going to take Max Crosby." Now, I don't know for a fact that Ben Cleveland would have been better. But I do know the history of tape says that Ben Cleveland has been better. Could he have stopped Max? I don't know. Most people can't. But I don't think Daniel Falele had a chance. And in a crucial time like that, we've been saying it like, okay, I guess we can do this experiment, but it better not be at the cost of either Lamar getting hurt or in a game like this. And that's what it is. Spencer Schultz says in the most crucial situation of the game, the plotting right guard has no idea where Max Crosby is while he's learning a new position with a more proven, experienced natural guard on the bench. Abject failure, he says.
Yep.
Then, not only that, Bobby, not only was there a problem with Fa'alele, who all the reporters are saying he's sound asleep, too slow, he's got his feet in quicksand, all that kind of stuff. But then you go to the right tackle situation. Patrick McCary gets eaten alive by, again, Max Crosby early in the game. Okay. But they keep McCary in for longer than they did last week. Finally, Rosengarten gets in, 5th offensive drive.
Oops.
And then that one play where Lamar scrambles and finds Zay Flowers down the field. Remember when he threw it across his body?
Yeah, it was tremendous.
Across the field, it was tremendous.
Roger
And
was working his tail off.
Roger, like I have a screen grab right here where he's got Crosby contained, but he had to go back and forth with Crosby. Like it was prolonged. It was a prolonged amount of time that he held up. And so he's doing well, but you stuck with your pregame formula and you went back to McCary again.
Right.
And I don't listen, I get where the Ravens are coming from a big picture that they wanted to let go of the older guys that were deteriorating. Their bodies were deteriorating, so they're going to go young. I got that. It seems to be working at left guard, and we saw a step forward at right tackle with Roger Rosengarten. In fact, I thought Roger showed enough to where I don't know that they need a rotation anymore. That doesn't mean he's still not going to have growing pains, but I think he showed a lot against Crosby today. So 2 out of 3 is not bad. Falele's not working. Why are we being stubborn? Put in Ben Cleveland. I don't understand the decision making there. I think that it would make a difference. And maybe I'm wrong, but can it get worse than what we saw? Can it get worse?
Sure. Micah Parsons could make it worse next week.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, can the play from Falele to Cleveland get worse?
Oh.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what do they have to lose?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is Cleveland going to be worse? Maybe he is. I don't know. They see more than we do because we're not at practice. But based off the film of last year, it wasn't worse with Ben Cleveland.
No, not at all. And the stubbornness it's got to be shored up at some point here, because not only are you kind of leaning on Fa'alele in an experimental phase, developmental phase, however you want to refer to it at this point, but you're leaning on him in the midst of an onslaught beginning of this season. We all know how top heavy in terms of strength of schedule the Ravens group is, the way they begin the year in terms of opponent. And so, you deal with Chris Jones on opening night, and then you deal with Max Crosby, who is just a freak of nature today. And then, like I said, you're going to have Micah Parsons coming up next week. And then after that, you got to see Cincinnati at some point in the next couple of weeks. So it's not getting any easier. And clearly, like you said, around that in the last couple minutes of the game where you're supposed to close, did they go 3 and out? I mean, it was just a totally stalled drive.
That's the point, is Fa'alele let Crosby through, sacked Lamar for double-digit yards, and it threw off the entire drive.
And John Harbaugh had this to say, specifically when asked if he would consider a change at the offensive line. Quote, "I'm just going to look to keep coaching the guys and keep getting better with the guys. I'll look at the tape and we'll see."
Meaning the starters he has currently in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're always going to play the best players. That's always a part of it. If that's what your question is, we'll always do that. So hopping around a little bit and not directly answering the question.
No, he did.
Well,
he absolutely
not
directly.
To our satisfaction.
Well, it wasn't the answer that people wanted, like me, who was saying make a change, but he answered it. I'm going to keep coaching the guys that I have, and he's basically saying I'm betting on those guys, and they're going to keep getting better. I'm going to give them a chance to keep getting better. He answered it all right. Now, he left a little window to say, hey, I'll take a look at the tape. But he's saying I'm always going to play the best players. So he didn't dance around at all. He said, I'm sticking with the guys that I have. I'm going to keep coaching them up. And unless there's something on the tape that would change my mind, that was his answer.
I think EDC tipped us off to this a couple Fridays ago, right before the season began, when he was speaking with reporters on that Friday morning. And he essentially said, we made an organizational decision to go young, whether it was cost cutting or not. And it's going to take hiccups. Hiccups was the word that he used, that might be in play. And that at some point within the year, or what did he say, this time next year? I can't remember the specific.
He said this time next year we'll have a great offensive line.
Oh, okay. Well, I get, is 24 a throwaway? It better not be. So, wow, that's become awfully foreshadowing, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to it. I don't understand why they don't take the win at 2 of the 3 places. Like, you are trying to do a massive thing. You're starting
It's an overhaul.
It's an overhaul around the offensive line. Actually, take the win that you're getting 3 out of 4 because we didn't know what Ronnie Stanley was going to look like. Right? Like after all the injuries he's had. So here's Ronnie looking the best he's looked since 2019. I'm not saying he's playing at 2019 level, but playing the best since 2019. So you got to win there. You got Voorhees, who has hiccups, but is giving you plenty of confidence that he's on his way. Linderbaum is Linderbaum. But with the first two, you got 2 out of 2. Linderbaum is Linderbaum. Then you've got Roger Rosengarten showing that he's growing. From last week, giving up a sack strip on his very first play when he comes into Chris Jones. And then on his very first play here, he stops Max Crosby and is able to help Lamar and Zay get a big connection downfield.
And he was in no man's land. I mean, that was Crosby Island. He showed incredible lateral movement, incredible strength to keep him at bay. That was an impressive rep.
Very impressive. So take the win with Ronnie. Take the win with Voorhees. Take the win with Roger and let him not rotate anymore. And then realize you have 3 wins. It's okay to admit that Fa'alele isn't working and that you should give Ben Cleveland a loss or a chance. Take those 3 wins and take the 1 L and move forward with them. Just you're rotating Roger Rosengarten. Why don't you at least rotate Ben Cleveland if rotating is going to be a thing? Why not at least rotate him at the very least so we can get a look at him? It makes no sense to me.
We've talked about the offensive line. We've talked about the suspect decision-making when it comes to throwing the challenge flag and what issues came of that in terms of time management, in terms of valuing the clock, in terms of valuing timeouts that are so precious in close games. What about the inability, Sarah, to stop a one-dimensional offense when it counts? This Vegas team did not want to run the football, Sarah, and it was no secret. They finished with 27 rushing yards. And as they kind of mauled their way down the field there late in the fourth quarter, courtesy of really just Minshew and Davante Adams, you're thinking to yourself, this is literally the epitome of a one-dimensional offense, and the Ravens didn't have any answer for it. We'll get into the penalties in just a bit. There were certainly some that maybe the league would want back, or the official, particularly with the defensive pass interference call with Brandon Stevens and single coverage on Davante Adams. Not only was it late, Sarah, that call, but it came from the official that was not on top of the play. And those who were there, whether in the press box, whether as fans, said that it was 20 to 25 yards away, vantage point wise, one of the officials. So, we can talk about that all we want, but when you look at the box score, sometimes things can be hidden in there. There's no hiding the fact that Vegas did not want to run the football.
After the game, Marlon Humphrey tweeted this.
This was from the past. This just was retweeted.
Oh, this is from the past.
Yes.
Okay, let's take it out then. I saw people quote retweeting it, so I thought it was from today.
Yeah, that was
because I didn't know what he was going to be referring to.
Yeah, I'm forgetting. I think that was during the Greg Roman era at some point, but it was retweeted today because you know why? It was retweeted today because people empathize with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't. All right, so where do we want to go next? Do we want to go to some of these? Because the meltdown happened with flags that didn't let you have timeouts, Fa'alele getting burned by Crosby,
but you know where it started though?
The fault starts with Derrick Henry, but we haven't talked about extending plays with the flags that I don't think were correct.
Yes, but you know what? You want to know where it started? I do, but you want to know where it all started, though, in my opinion, in terms of where it went downhill, was when the one time the Ravens turned the ball over immediately led to not only points for Vegas, so they cashed in on points.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
But it also led to a significant change in momentum, and that was Rashad Bateman's mind-boggling. Again, interceptions is a stat that oftentimes, just like fumbles, you need context on them. And Sarah, there's going to be one interception on Lamar's resume, at least one interception on Lamar's 2024 resume that you need context on. And it was this. And you screenshot it from the CBS broadcast. And as you tweeted, that pick will hurt Lamar's stat line, but it was 100% on Rashad Bateman. It hit him in both hands, right in the breadbasket. He bobbled it. leads to a Spillane interception, who had a game-wrecking type of performance along with Crosby, and completely changed the arc of this game in the second half.
Yeah, I think you pinpointed it correctly. Because off that interception, they went and got a touchdown. Next possession, they got a field goal. Next possession, touchdown. Next possession, field goal.
And
It
Sarah,
started.
it was quick points too.
Yeah, it
The
was
first touchdown. It was quick.
touchdown. The possession lasted a little over 3 minutes.
Yeah.
The next field goal was just under 3 minutes. The next touchdown, 3:42, and then the field goal under 2 minutes.
Yep. Right there.
You're right.
Momentum shift.
That was
and all
it.
of a sudden, a game that felt like it was undeniably in control by Baltimore shifted, and they never regained it.
Yeah, and a lot of Bateman truthers who I don't hate, like Bateman needs some love too, trying to act like this either was not on him or on Lamar or whatever. Listen, look at that ball. He's got two hands on it. He closed his hands too early. Like it bounced off of it. And there's a lot of people who say, well, look, the defender's draped on him. Well, a defender's going to be draped on your wide receiver 9 times out of 10.
Right.
This is the NFL. This isn't like Pee Wee. This isn't even college where, a Division I team is playing, some team you've rarely ever heard of. This is the NFL, and he's wide receiver too. So don't infantilize Bateman. This is expected. Listen, if you think he's wide receiver 2, you put wide receiver 2 expectations on him. If you want to take wide receiver 2 expectations off of him, fine. Then admit that you don't think he's wide receiver 2. On this play, and by the way, people are saying it's double coverage. The other guy didn't come over until after the ball was already thrown.
Yeah.
And then they just, he closed his hands too quickly. It bounced. The other guy was there. And then the linebacker came in, and he's the one who ended up getting the interception. Now, Bateman has also come up big a few times. So
including today, he
had that 18-yarder, which was huge.
Phenomenal hands.
He actually got tripped up by the turf and still was able to keep his feet and then get the ball. So he had that. And last week he put the Ravens in position to have the 3 shots in the end zone. So this isn't saying that Bateman is, needs to be cut. But on this specific play that changed the momentum of the game, it was on Bateman, 100%. Because, Bobby, heading into that, remember the first drive coming out of the half, they finally got Derrick Henry going. It was gorgeous drive. In fact, we should probably go up and review that. Let me see if we can go up.
And you want to know too, while you're toggling?
Yeah.
We saw for the very first time Derrick get downhill in the second level. And not only was he in the second level, but as you'll pull up on the screen here shortly, he was stiff arming. He was in fierce mode. And so seeing that was just this discovery. I think you just kicked yourself from the room by so yeah. And as you tweeted, it was a very, very slow start to the half. And the offensive line was getting very little push. Derrick was getting blown up in the backfield like you don't typically see from somebody of his stature, and they had no answer. But credit Todd Monken for in-game adjustments. They got the game going as a result of the passing game, and Derrick started getting downhill, and the guy started blocking up front, and you started to see him get into the second level. And how about the direct snap? I mean, not only trickery to Derrick, but then the bully ball to literally, without question, get him in the end zone. It was a refusal to be denied at the goal line. And you had Ricard and everybody making sure from behind that Derrick Henry would cross the plane. And so you're thinking to yourself, Sarah, not only are they kind of going into the vault, so to speak, but now this is bully ball. This is what Ravens football with Derrick Henry in the backfield should look like.
Right. And just real quick, just because while you were talking, I was looking at the live chat. So there are a vocal minority acting like we're giving excuses right now. I don't understand that. We started out the show saying there are lots of people to blame, and it starts with coaching. Hello? It starts with coaching and the decisions with the flags and the offensive line And now that we're talking about Henry, in the first half, I thought Monken was predictable. Then we point out Bateman, and now we're pointing out that you destroyed the momentum that you finally that took you a game and a half to get with Henry. What excuses are we making? What excuses are we making? I don't see it.
I
I
don't
don't
even
see
see
it
the chat. Yeah.
whatsoever. That's hilarious to me. This is when people get so angry that they can't even hear what's being said. You're so angry you can't even hear what's being said. Come on, what excuses have we given? Like talking about coaching, talking about Bateman, talking about predictable plays. Come on. This is squarely on the Ravens. We said they melted down. Self-inflicted. No excuses here
for sure.
whatsoever.
For sure.
Whatsoever. Anyway, to your point on the screenshot that we have up. The Ravens turned things around so well from the first quarter, or for the first half, where Henry had 7 touches for 5 yards. Woof.
Yeah.
Woof. Then all of a sudden they come out with that first drive and this man takes over. And I thought that, as you said, Monken changed things up. We saw some more tosses. We saw some outside zone. We saw plenty to get him going. We even caught one out of the backfield.
Right.
They actually let him catch one. It wasn't just Justice Hill. And then on a few plays, they put Justice in on first down instead of Henry, which is what they were doing the entire time. They got going so well that on this play, in the fourth quarter, this is when I thought the game was going to be done, over. You're in the fourth quarter, 12 minutes left. The Ravens and Todd Monken are now telegraphing to you exactly what you're going to do with a Wildcat, and you put Henry back there. You don't even need the distraction of Lamar. You don't even need that. We are going to do bully ball here, and we're going to run it right up the gut. And it's daring the defense to stop you, and they couldn't. Bobby, I thought this was going to be the dagger.
But it should have been. You got 12 minutes left, and you're up by 2 possessions. It has to be a dagger.
Yeah, because
and it feels like a dagger.
Right, so you could just go to Henry for the rest of the time. Like, the defense has been playing well. Like, finish this off.
Yes.
Finish it off.
It's
now,
12,
I will
look
say,
at this. 12 minutes and 18 seconds are left when they have a refusal to be denied.
Yeah.
And somehow, some way, when, like you said, when everybody in the world knows what you're running and you still don't have an answer for that, it's over. That's demoralizing. Finish. They didn't finish in Indianapolis, or it was in Baltimore, but they didn't finish against Gardner Minshew's Indianapolis Colts last year on that rainy, soggy Sunday, Sarah. And they didn't finish from their season opener, their home opener today either.
Well, and I'll also say this: as much as Henry got going, by the way, he was about 3 yards shy of a total 100-yard game. He had 84 on the ground, and then 12 more with his reception. And there was a for sure phantom holding call on Ronnie Stanley that took back another 9-yarder.
And Derek himself had 2.
Yes. So that's what I was about to get to. So I thought he had a great second half, but he himself added to the clunkiness of the offense with those 2 false starts.
Yep, for sure.
And Derek can't do that. It's like all these things put together, right? The bad challenge flags, not leaving a timeout. Henry having a great second half, but hurting with the false starts. Bateman not securing the ball when the ball hits him with both hands or the ball hits him in both hands. Like, it's just all of these things becoming clunky and just hurting yourself. This was beautiful.
Here's that.
I wish we were celebrating this more right now. His first stiff arm as a Raven. That, Bobby, that's not a defensive back. That's a linebacker, correct?
That looks like I'd have to look at the number. Does anybody know who that is?
Who is that?
It's not Spillane, is it? I don't know.
Well, you guys let me know.
He's built like a D lineman, but I don't know.
Either way, this is a grown professional football player. And with one arm, Derrick Henry takes him and throws him.
Yeah.
Just throws him with that stiff arm and grabbing the jersey and making him fly. Yeah. I mean, I wish that we were celebrating right now. I thought at the beginning, when he scored that touchdown on the Wildcat, I thought with 12 minutes left, Our show is going to be about how the offense found its way with Derrick Henry. He came alive showing his vintage moves, showing he's still got it. He's got a stiff arm. He started out slow, but then he went off in the second half. That's what I thought the story of the game was going to be.
Yep.
And then it just melted away. All of it.
Let's talk about some of these key flags thrown, key areas that, from an officiating standpoint, were relevant to the outcome. Of course, most notably, it was the defensive pass interference call on Brandon Stevens in the left-hand corner of the end zone in single coverage on Davante Adams. Davante had a tremendous game, 9 receptions. That was a game-high statistic, along with his receiving yards as well of 110. He did have a touchdown. He did have 12 targets, and he and Minshew clearly have chemistry. They've played together now for a couple of years. The specific call itself, Sarah, as we mentioned earlier on, not only did it come in late, but it came from an official that was not on top of the play itself. So and I should know the specific, I just don't off the top of my head of the specific officials in terms of where they are in any given moment of the game. But this one that was right on top of it did not make the call. The one who did was 25 yards away. And so that's a tough look just in general. Here's the screenshot and your tweet that's attached with it as well. There was a ton of hand contact that was mutual. So Tiki Barber, immediately, who was calling the game with Andrew Catalon on CBS, his initial reaction was, this thing's going to get called every single time just because of the hand placement. Whereas Gene Steratore, they didn't cut to him because I think the game was just moving quickly at that point. But Andrew Catalon, you did notice, he said Gene did not agree with Tiki's analysis, nor did Twitter.
Nor did Ravens Twitter, that's for sure. Yeah, no, there's a certain amount of, contact allowed within those 5 yards. And I'm trying to remember how far out they were. But Stevens released. He releases when the ball's in the air, and he's got one hand away from him, not even touching his body, and hits it down with the other. I would have loved to hear Gene's. Is Gene on Twitter? Does he sometimes tweet? I feel like in the past he has.
I'll check it for you.
Yes, you look that up for us.
Because I know you're going to do that after.
Yeah, you know I want to know.
Here he is.
You do have, what is he? He has information on this play?
Oh, no.
Oh, you said here he is, meaning you found.
Oh, I'm sorry. He does tweet.
Oh, here we go.
And watch this. Here's what we're going to do. Actually, I'm not going to screen share it because he's got a highlight of it, and I don't want us to get dinged. Okay, so Gene says about the Brandon Stevens DPI call, I believe both the wide receiver and DB were hand fighting while the ball was in the air and broke contact around the same time. I didn't see either one gaining an advantage, so not in favor of the defensive pass interference call. So there you have it. That's what he would have said on the air.
That's what you said. There's hand fighting, and again, you can do that within 5 yards. And as you start there was no advantage, and they both released.
Yep.
And so, no, and because the defense had a great game until penalties like this extend it.
Yeah.
You can only stop Davante Adams so many times.
Brandon had his work cut out for him with him.
Now, Brandon did give up his, but in my opinion, he stopped him here on a crucial. This was 4th down, correct?
This was.
Or is this one's on 4th down? Okay, this one was on 4th down. On 4th and 2, they went to Adams. Stevens was in coverage, and they didn't convert. Stevens did his job. So much so that we're celebrating on Twitter saying this man in a contract year is getting his bag. Okay. Now, he did get eaten up a little bit between the end zones, but between this play on 4th and 2 where he stops him, and then on this play where I think he stopped him. And by the way, I had fans from other teams, of course, acting like I'm spinning it. And yet Ravens fans were mad at me because I said the call that they wanted a late hit on Lamar and John Harbaugh wanted it. I think the refs called that correctly. His feet were in bounds. Looked like he was giving himself a little bit up.
He gave himself up. Yeah.
But he was in bounds.
Yeah.
And last week, from what I saw, Roquan Smith had an even more close call that wasn't called for Patrick Mahomes. So people are like, well, Patrick Mahomes would get that call. Well, last week he didn't.
You know my
Last
theory
week,
on that one, though. Remember?
what?
My
Is he
theory on that
flopped?
was it ended up being a wash because of what happened seconds after with Peyton Hendershot, that reserve tight end who shoved Roquan from the back,
Yeah.
and they didn't call anything.
Yeah.
He got fined. He got fined over the weekend,
Right.
as did Odafe Owe. Maybe we can get to that later on for something that happened
We'll
in the
get to
Chiefs game.
Odafe. Yeah.
But
Well,
I was thinking that was a wash because of the two kind of canceling each
well,
other out.
then
That's
they
just my
should
theory on it.
sure, but they could have thrown both flags and then had it cancel each other out,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So, point being, if you're a Chiefs fan, you could be griping that didn't get called. And then this week. So, my point of bringing this up is because I'm not calling this one-sided.
Yeah.
Right? I'm
yeah.
trying to call it as objectively as I can. When I looked at the Lamar one, his feet were in bounds. So to me, I get why the refs didn't throw the flag. This one, I just objectively disagree. I agree with Gene. Like they had some hand fighting, is exactly what you said, and they both released, and then Stevens played the ball perfectly, absolutely perfectly. So, and that's tough on a defense that's playing well all game, and then you gift them a 1st and 1 at the goal line after that. Like, how many times do you have to stop them as a defense? That's tough to do.
Let's keep up the officiating review here in just a second. We'll also get to some super chats as well. But first, this live stream is brought to you by our friends at GEHA, and they are our exclusive post-game show title sponsor for this upcoming Ravens season, and we're pleased to be back with them for yet another year. And GEHA says, hey, Ravens flock, a new season is upon us, and that means another amazing one. It doesn't feel very amazing today, but hopefully overall for the city of Baltimore. And while your favorite team plans their future, the Government Employees Health Association, GEHA, can help you plan for yours. They have offered medical and dental benefits for more than 87 years, and they are designed to meet the needs of federal employees and retirees, military retirees, and their families. And with over 2 million members, GEHA continues to serve those members and families who serve all of us every single day. GEHA, they are a proud partner of the Baltimore Ravens, and they've been providing health and dental benefits for federal employees since 1937. If you want to learn more, you can go to our show notes or just GEHA.com. Thanks, Government Employees Health Association, for all the support that you give us throughout the season. Adam78 just dropped in with a super chat donation. We've got over 4,000 concurrents joining us tonight.
Woo.
Appreciate you for being here. As always, you know the drill. Like the video if you've been enjoying the content. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And hit that notification bell so that you can be notified of when Sarah and I are dropping our daily live content. Adam78 says, the Matabike sack by Jersey. The refs called a face mask. They did. That was one of those bang plays where, and I saw Jeff Sarebek tweeting about this, and he kind of said, like, because it was so bang, isn't there supposed to be like a streamlined communication process of phoning down to the officials that are on the field? That should just be one of those quick things that's, hey, let's review this quickly. There's a consistent communication process, and let's just phone this upstairs real quick. Let's not even stop. Let's barely even stop play here. Get a look at that as to if we got it right or not. That's not the case. And so Matabike gets flagged for face mask when it wasn't a face mask.
I tweeted it. I tweeted this. It was not a face mask. Now, if the refs wanted to call a Jabo for the late jumping on him, I think that one would have been more the correct call. Although if they had called that, I think it might have been more yardage for roughing the passer versus a face mask. But it was absolutely not a face mask. And I kind of throw it away, though, because I think they could have thrown a flag on a Jabo.
Definitely. Other super chats that have come in just within the short last. Thank you, Adam, by the way.
Just so we see it, there's Lamar's feet in bounds, and there's the contact.
Going back to the Lamar one, right?
Yeah.
And Harbs,
it's a good no call.
And when Harbs saw the replay, you also saw his reaction on the screenshot. On the left-hand side there, kind of in disbelief. Marcus Orr, thank you. Minshew and Adam. Oh, okay, this was my mistake a minute ago. Minshew and Adams just started playing together this year. Duh. Minshew went to Las Vegas in the offseason after being in Indianapolis last year. Thank you. I misspoke a couple minutes ago saying that they had multiple years together, which they don't. And shall we get to some others a little bit later on when it's about coaching and whatnot?
Sure. I know we're about to move over to defense, but I just want to give a couple more offensive notes here.
Yeah.
So the rushing ended up with the Ravens ended up rushing for about 150 yards, but it was a complete 180 from what we saw last week. And just as we said, we felt like last week Lamar and the Ravens wanted to put the game on his back. I think he wanted that game because it was against the Chiefs and the way the Chiefs knocked him out of the AFC Championship game. And we all said that that workload was unsustainable, and we predicted that the Ravens would not repeat it. They did not. At one point, the broadcast was saying, I think he only had like one rush in the first half, and they're like, wow, they're doing a great job. They're doing a great job because it's not like it's intentional by the Ravens' part. I'm like, no, we've been saying all week that it was going to be intentional, that they weren't going to run Lamar as much.
Right.
So this time he did have 5 attempts for 45 yards, but it felt like, fine reads and all that kind of stuff. Justice Hill only added 4 attempts for 22 yards. So, pretty vintage Ravens over 150 yards. Really got Derrick Henry going. In receiving, Zay Flowers, I was happy to see Zay Flowers becoming a receiver downfield this week, whereas last week he was just the screen guy to get rid of the ball during the pass rush. So he had 11 targets. That was a team high. Devontae Adams got one more target than him at 12, but he ended with 7. I thought there was a couple that Flowers would have wanted back. Just a couple, nothing too egregious. But he ended up with 91 yards for a touchdown, which almost matches Devontae Adams. Adams had the 9 for 110 and 1 touchdown.
Zay is clearly wide receiver 1.
He's clearly wide receiver 1. Mark Andrews, as we said, listen, don't give up on Mark Andrews yet. Not that he had a huge game, but we felt like because of the Chiefs defended him with double or triple coverage, that helped Isaiah likely break out a little bit. Yeah. And so Mark Andrews this time 4 catches for 51 yards. Isaiah moved down to 2 for 26. By the way, there was one of those games again, not that I'm like mad at Isaiah, but just like last week where it was like a toe that would have made a huge difference. They still would have had to have gone for 2, but he could have still put him in a position to win. This week, he almost had that deep pass. He had his 2 feet in. This is on the final drive before Lamar runs up the middle on the 4th down. He almost put Justin Tucker in position to try to win it with the field goal, or at least tie it to put it into overtime. But the Las Vegas defender came and like ripped it out. So it was good on the defender, good play on him. But it was just two times in a row, week to week, that it was like Isaiah was so close to making the offensive play of the game to at least put them in position to win. So some of the things that we predicted that would change on offense did, but in the end, it was all for naught.
And we'll get to special teams, by the way. I know you heard I'm sure some of you out there heard Justin's name. We will get to special teams and talk about that. I have one other note before we shift over, if you're all set with your notes, offensively wise. And mine is about Ronnie. And maybe this is overkill just because we mentioned it earlier on, but maybe he deserves one more shout out because I felt like some of Derrick's biggest runs were a direct result of Ronnie paving the way. And in particular, the one that we singled out earlier on in the stream, where he got into the second level and he was stiff arming and he was just getting into that mean mode, like, look out, I'm running you over. Ronnie was clearing the way for him. And so I just felt like Ronnie's start to the year, aside from some of these phantom penalties, right? Some of these sort of hit or miss types of situations where he's completely, it's out of his control from an officiating standpoint. Ronnie is healthy. Ronnie looks good. And I think that bodes well over the course of an entire season. And so, we've spent a lot of time obviously talking about the opposite side of where he is, which is good because it means he and Voorhees are doing their job. So just wanted to say that before we shift over.
Good note. All right, defensively, defense. All right.
Yeah. Defensively, the story, it's funny. You said something earlier on that made me think of, like, when there's a certain amount of time left in the game, you start to envision how you think the post-game show is going to go. Yeah. And so if there were to be one at the end of the first half, it would have been, dang, like, Odafe Owe, this is what we've been waiting for.
Breakout game.
Right? Breakout game. It was certainly a breakout half. He had a sack on each of the first 2 drives earlier today. And the sack on 3rd and 4, as Jamison Hensley noted on Twitter, forced the Raiders to punt. He had 5 sacks all of last season, finished with 2.5, Sarah, today. And he was flying around and fierce on the edge for them.
He was He was exactly what the Ravens hoped. Bobby, we had our prediction show, our breakout players. You chose Isaiah Likely, and I chose Odafe Owe. And in these first two games, they both kind of started showing that. This first play that he got, where he got to Gardner Minshew and forced the sack, it's too bad the Ravens weren't able to fall on it, but he got the sack and he got the strip.
Yeah.
I mean, just massive, massive plays for him. Exactly what you want to see. And then on top of it, he had let's see, so 2.5 sacks, 3 quarterback hits, so that counts as part of the sacks, count as part of those. And then 2 tackles for loss. There was one time, Bobby, that it looked to me that the Raiders on a run to the left outside might have been able to turn the corner because there was a hat on every single one of the Ravens defenders. And then last second, Odafe was able to shed his blocker and bring the guy down. I don't know if it was for a loss, but it wasn't for much. It might have been at the line of scrimmage or 1 yard. And so it wasn't just that he had sacks. It was that he played the run game well too. I thought he had a great all-around game. I don't know that we're quite ready for the Nnamdi Madubuike and Travis Jones duo. The pressure that they're able to get on. It was hilarious to me. Like we were talking about the Madubuike playing, whether that was a face mask. Remember, though, with one arm, this dude is so strong that with one arm, he's able to grab Minshew's chest and bring him down. And he did that on another play with a running back, if you remember, that he just got one arm on him and like he went down. Like he's just so freakishly strong, Nnamdi Madubuike. And it's nice to see that in a breakout year where he expected people to defend him differently because of that breakout year, and he's been paid and he's an all-pro, that he's still making plays despite all of that. And that's when you know you got a good one. And then adding Travis Jones with the pressure up the middle is just icing on the cake.
Yeah, and where this conversation began with Odafe, what was cool about and sort of added to his performance was his running mate, Kyle Van Noy, who was questionable going into today with an eye injury. We all remember what happened, and certainly been an eventful week or so with KVN in the media, who took issue with the Chiefs training staff handling of his eye care. And the Chiefs came back and said, hey, wait a second, you only waited 12 minutes, and that became a huge, big thing. But KVN, as if he hadn't been significantly injured with that eye over the last 10 days, because, and we are getting spammed hard in the live chat, so let's just block that. But I was like,
we don't need spam in here.
but
we don't block people often, but we will block spammers. So we
oh
got
my
that one
Lord.
Out.
Okay. If you guys can always help us out with that too, if we don't see it. So KVN goes for 3 tackles for loss, 3 QB hits, 2 sacks, 3 total tackles, 3, and all 3 of which were solo. So that guy had himself a game, and the fact that he wasn't even really available to practice much throughout their mini bye because of the injury, a testament to his toughness.
Yeah, absolutely. I was surprised by Kyle Van Noy. I thought the Ravens were playing like an injury game in terms of not giving out information. So when they were like trying to keep hope alive towards the end of the week that he might return, I was like, oh, I'm not buying this one, know? And then what do you know? He was out there and, he had himself a good game. And that's like, this is what's so frustrating also is like, we're pointing out all these, good plays and breakout games for the defenders. How about even one right here, Marlon Humphrey? He got a pick. Minshew made a terrible decision for sure. But Marlon had to dive and go get that thing. And so, there's like for 3.5 quarters, you're like, look at this defense. They're coming into their own under Zach Orr. Like it was only going to take a minute for them to figure it out. And then they melt down and help give up a 10-point lead. And granted, again, I do think that flag on Stevens was wrong. And I think that helped the Raiders big time. I think it was a huge gift. Nonetheless, at the end of the day, the defense did give up a 10-point lead. And so again, it's just like when I said with Henry, I thought we would be celebrating the breakout game of Henry as a Raven. It was the same thing on the defensive side. I thought we'd be sitting here celebrating all these great plays by Madubuike and Odafe and Travis Jones and Humphrey on that. And Stevens, stopping Adams twice. But we can't celebrate it because it was spoiled because everybody melted down in the end. And it was on all sides, coaching, offense, defense. And I think we're about to get to special teams.
Perfect segue, because special teams is not absolved of blame either, which, wow. Justin Tucker is 1 for his last 7, Sarah, over the last 2 seasons from 50 plus.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that is a trend. That's a trend.
1 of 7 is definitely a trend.
Yeah. And so, Justin, not only is that a trend, but that's also something that right here you don't see all that often. And for the audio only audience, it's frustration. It's sulking. It's actually
Putting his head down.
throwing something on the sideline. Justin Tucker showed visible frustration on the sideline at the half, by the way, in Kansas City. Cincinnati leads the Chiefs 16-10. So we'll keep you updated throughout that.
Great.
And we'll also take a look around the AFC North coming up in just a second here, because Cleveland got its first win of the year. Special teams, from a kicking standpoint, something that was once, Sarah, a given, or at least maybe a non-worry. I'm not saying it's worry or panic time, but at least it's something that's, oh yeah, you are.
I don't know that I'm panicking about Tucker. I don't know if panic is the right word. Why don't you finish your thought? And I want to have the question out there about panic.
Okay.
Overall for the team, and we'll let the live chat chime in.
Okay.
So finish your thought. Sorry. Go ahead.
While the snowballing effect was taking place, I mentioned that Bateman
Snowballing, that's a good
interception,
word
right?
for it.
That was a snowballing momentum shift that I mentioned earlier on. Another area that the Ravens just totally shot themselves in the foot was when a drive completely stalls, and Jordan Stout, who's typically great at flipping the field, hits. Really, I saw some folks that were in person referred to this as a shank, a 24-yard punt, and then there was a penalty, so they tacked on another 5 yards as well. I think that was Kadar Hallman. So the Raiders take over
was
at the
a 20-yarder punt in a crucial fourth quarter moment.
Crucial. And you give the Raiders an opportunity to be like, all right, well, we know you guys aren't getting any ground game going, so, here you go. You can start at, at hour 43. Like, that was really crushing, and equally as impactful as, in a sense,
everything else we've talked
Bateman
about.
interception. Yeah, like all these other key crucial areas of blame. You got to point the finger at that one too.
Listen, when teams melt down, it's cliche, but again, especially in this point, so true that it took a full team effort to do it. It took, like, if Tucker had made a 50-yarder, if Stout doesn't just
Shankopotamus.
I don't want to say what I want to say. Just if he doesn't mess up in the very moment that you need him to kick it deep downfield, if the defense doesn't give up 10 points, if the ref doesn't call the DPI, if Harbs had left timeouts instead of guessing on challenges, if you had put in the offensive lineman that, give Cleveland a shot, just like all of these things all over the place, happening everywhere, a full team meltdown.
You were going to add on to the special teams topic, or are you good there?
No, I was going to bring up Stout, but you did it for me.
Okay, cool. So those are your 3 phases. Lots and lots of blame to go around. We do have more super chats to discuss as well. Blair Davis, thank you for your $9.99 donation. Given it's still early in the season, do you guys believe the Ravens can turn things around, and that it's more important how a team finishes than how they start? As a Ravens fan, it's frustrating. Of course there's time. Yeah, there's so much time. But as we discussed, the degree of difficulty with a first-place schedule from a year ago and how top-heavy it is, speaking of snowballing, this can get ugly quick. Let's just take a peek at what's going on in the schedule here. You've got Dallas at Dallas. Now, granted, if the Dallas that showed up today to play, was it New Orleans? Let me check that real quick. It was a thumping. Who did they play today? Yeah, they played New Orleans today at home, Sarah. 44-19. They lost.
Who's this?
Dallas, the Ravens' opponent next weekend. They lost 44-19. And so if that Dallas shows up,
after a game that they were like, all right, they're here. Like Dak's Dak's proving he's worth his contract, like all of
Oh
that.
yeah. Oh
Dallas
yeah.
is one of those teams. Like I don't pay attention too much, obviously, because we're so honed in on the Ravens, but they just seem like such an up and down team. So up
But
and down.
but typically in the Dak era, they haven't been up and down in the regular season. They've been up and down in the postseason, whereas typically
Or
they're
down the
winning
stretch.
divisions throughout. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so not that they not that they haven't certainly had their flashes and whatnot in regular season, but uh so you get the sense that Jerry's world on the road, coming off an embarrassing loss, that you're going to get a competitive Dallas team. Then you have Sunday Night Football the following week against the Buffalo Bills, and they are playing as good as anybody is right now across the league. And then from there, you begin October, week 5, at Cincinnati.
Right.
And that's a 1:00 game. So it does not get any easier. It is an extremely, as we noted in May when the schedule release came out, it is a very, very difficult, top-heavy beginning stretch, a month plus. But with all that said, obviously there's still time to resurrect this thing.
Okay, so this brings the way you just set that up is I was going to bring this up, but we'll let Saucy do it for his $5 super chat. He says,
Saucy.
Is Saucy? Is it time to panic? Weeks 3 through 10 games are Cowboys, Bills, and Bengals twice, and then the Bucks. What changes would you like to see for the Cowboys game? Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
let's
Yeah.
get this up. Let's define panic. How do you define panic?
I would panic. How I define panic is, gosh, there's so many different ways too. The first thing that comes to mind for me when you look at the way this team is constructed is, can they get to where they want to be with the current overall operation?
Correct. I agree.
Okay.
So to me, panic means that you make decisions that you didn't want to have to make. Okay. And I hope that the alarm bells are sounding enough in the Ravens facility that John Harbaugh says, I'm going to make a change to the offensive line.
First and foremost,
First and
easy
foremost.
change
Easy
tomorrow.
change. We're doing it tomorrow. Ben Cleveland has done this before. At the very least, let's rotate him and Falalele. Very least. I'd prefer just a straight up change, but at the very least. To me, I hope enough panic sets in that it forces him to make a change that he otherwise wouldn't do. So under this definition of panic, of changes, okay, I hope this wakes them up in terms of not doing what he did, which is guessing on challenges and being more buttoned up and looking at that process and saying, wait, did I hurt or help the team? Instead of this attitude of, oh, I don't think it was a difference in the game. Okay. I hope it's a wake-up call to where Derrick Henry doesn't have 2 false starts. Right. Now, some of these things, some of these calls you can't change if the refs get it wrong, but that happens in every single game. But, I can't take my offense out from 3-1 or 2-1 and have a false start, and now we're 3-6, and now I'm coming off the field. Derrick Henry, I'm coming off the field because the false start I just had.
Yeah.
So, and then you're like, we haven't started 0-2 since 2015. They end up with only 5 wins overall. Now, granted, Joe Flacco was injured that year. When you lose your starting quarterback, that's going to happen. But you have to, in a sense, have some alarm bells going off, which to me is in the panic realm, and say, we got to wake up before the season gets away from us. Now, they've seen Bengals overcome it before. They've seen Steelers overcome it before, all that kind of stuff. So it's overcomable. Is that a word? So I would say with that definition we've laid out, yeah, it's time to panic and make some changes.
Thanks for the question, Saucy, or at least the topic. Tom, thank you for your donation as well. This is a fact. Every NFL game is a chess match, and John Harbaugh is an average chess player at best. When teams are equal, your head coach needs to make the difference. He does not. Adam Legend, thank you. If grabs on the chest being called face masks and wide receiver hugs to DBs being called PIs is what we can expect, the Ravens are in for a bad reffing year. Let's see. I think we've hit every single, at least displaying wise. Actually, I had to get Dre Dog. Dre Dog's in there. Ravens have to get over the wide receiver is not a priority mindset. I like Zay, but he's not enough. We just saw what having a legit dog outside does. Come on now. We did see Devontae. Oh man, is he just tremendous? That
He's
guy.
tremendous. Just want to put out there again, the stats were very similar between Zay and Devontae.
Yeah, Zay is number one.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Now we can talk about moments of the game.
Sure.
Maybe Adams came up with that with the touchdown at the end, but that was after he was, in my view, gifted because Steven stopped him twice. So I hear what he's saying for sure.
Yeah.
But Zay was right there with Adams today, stats wise.
Let's get our patrons in here as well while we're at it. Paul and Robert Bergeron, thank you for the support and investment that you make in us on a monthly basis through Patreon. We appreciate you, and thanks for believing in what we're building. If you guys are interested in doing the same, you can join the Vault Patreon community by visiting our show notes or just type in patreon.com/Ravens Vault Podcast, and you can support us for as little as $1.99. What else do we need to discuss before we bounce? Pretty good, thorough job there, partner. Hopefully we talk some folks off the ledge a little bit
I don't
today.
know. I think I pushed some people a little bit.
How could we not? This was as objective as we've ever been on this show, I think, over the last hour. And we typically are pretty consistently. So, in my biased view. So, there you go.
We're objective in our biased view.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we've said it all. It's full team meltdown. Starts with the coaching. Go on down. The Ravens are going to have to do some soul searching. They should have won that game. Everybody expected them to win that game. They had that game, 10-point win, and everybody just fumbled. Just fumbled metaphorically. Fumbled the ball. Special teams, offense, defense, coaching. Everybody fumbled. And I agree with one of the super chats you said, if you're going to be that close, the difference. I mean, people say the difference is like in your quarterbacks or the difference is in your head coach. And we didn't get the edge. We didn't get the edge in the head coaching department today. So you said it's Dallas up next?
We've got Dallas up next. It is a 4:25 kickoff next week.
In Dallas.
In Dallas, and then
Okay.
quickly, and this is the part where typically people start throwing in super chats to try and convince us to stay on. So if you guys want to do that, you can. But I'm going to give you an AFC North update while we're at it. The Steelers are currently 10 up on the Broncos, 10-0 in the third. Like we said, this is not in division, but obviously, I'm sorry, it is in division. The Bengals are up at the half in Kansas City, 16-10. We know the success that Joe Burrow and company have had against Kansas City. And then Cleveland got its first win of the year at Jacksonville, 18-13. A bounce back performance for the Browns. A very modest day for Deshaun Watson, 22 of 34 for 186 yards. No interceptions, no picks. He was sacked twice, and he finished with a QB rating of 78.8. So
it's trending right now, and things could always change, but it's trending right now that the Ravens are in fourth place with the only team to start 0-2.
Yeah.
With no wins. That's the way it's trending. Things could change. I mean, Kansas City could come back, yada, yada, yada. But when you go down 0-2 and nobody else in the AFC North is, and then you got to go to Dallas against a team that's going to want to have a get-right game themselves, you're playing with fire.
Yeah.
You're playing with fire. Yeah.
You are. And so much so, it almost makes you feel like it's time to start tempering expectations. A little bit early to do this, but temper expectations in terms of what you're chasing this year. It may not be a division title. It may be a wild card appearance. So it can get that. You can get there quickly in this division.
And what's frustrating, Bobby, is there are pieces. All the pieces are here for the Ravens to be successful. All the pieces are here. Get it together.
On paper. Yeah.
Get it together.
On paper. So
well, in the game until you lose a 10-point lead.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Again, when they punched it in from Derek, direct snap, bully ball, 10-point lead, got to be it. It's got to be it. Rashad's got to have that pass instead of having it being intercepted. You got to be more cognizant of time management and valuing timeouts, and you've got to make a change at the offensive line. So let's monitor all those things coming up this week. We appreciate you guys for being here, almost 5,000 strong.
Whew,
you guys are tremendous.
Last week.
Even after a loss, you guys are tremendous. So we thank you for your support. If you're interested in donating to the channel, you don't want to do so through Patreon, you can always do so on a one-time basis on Venmo at Ravens Vault Podcast, which you see up on the screen. As a reminder, this is always available. We are in the audio only side of things as well. Spotify, Apple, Google Play, and that episode in audio only form of this one will be up as soon as I finish things up in the next hour or so. So look out for that. Like the video if you enjoyed the content. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And please hit that notification bell so that you can be notified of when Sarah and I are dropping our live content, which will be next in action tomorrow for a Monday Ravens lunch hour live stream. And we are tentatively scheduled to have a 12:30 guest that I think you'd like to hear from. So that is that. For my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison, and GEHA, our title sponsor, Government Employees Health Association, I'm Bobby Trosset signing off from this instant reaction episode. The Ravens fall to 0-2 for the first time since 2015. And in classic form, Alex is hitting. I'm literally seconds away from closing this show, and I can't turn down. We can't turn down $19.99 donations. Thank you, Alex. Alex writes, I'm optimistic, but what's frustrating is I love how I just immediately shift back to content. But what's frustrating is the Ravens are consistently inconsistent. Coaching, offense, and defense. More to come on that. Of course, we will be following all of it coming up this week. Alex, thank you for the 11th hour donation. That was super, super kind of you and super kind of all 5,000 of you to be with us concurrently right now. So we will catch up with you Monday. And until then, talk to you.